Good morning. It is Tuesday, May 3rd, 2022, and it's John Gilkison here, Aero Stealth, and I wanted to shoot a video on traveling from our house to Cloudcroft, New Mexico, which involved climbing the Sacramento Mountains, and it was a 4,430 foot climb from the base of the mountain in Alamogordo on up to Cloudcroft. So I was curious on what this would mean for the car's performance. Now, of course, the next day we came back down the mountain, so we regained some of that energy that we expended climbing the mountain. But I had been concerned. It was over a 200-mile round trip, and a better route planner had informed me that I could do the trip if I left the house with 100% battery, but I'd only get back with around 10% battery. And of course, what a better route planner says is going to happen and what really happens might be slightly two different things. So, and we were hoping to pick up some extra charge while we stayed overnight on the mountain. So, on Sunday morning, we left the house with 100% charge in our Chevy Bolt, and we traveled to Alamogordo, and at the base of the mountain we stopped and I gathered some preliminary data for a baseline, and then we went ahead and climbed the mountain. The speed limit starts out at around 50 miles an hour, but then it slows down to about 45, and there's some curves where you have to slow down to about 35. But the car had no problem in cruise control. It just maintained whatever speed I set it at. And I'd seen as kilowatt readings as high as 48, 50 kilowatts climbing the mountain, depending on the grade. So anyway, here's the particulars. We traveled a total of 15.9 miles to climb the mountain, and it took 8.9 kilowatt hours, which, let me get on the right page here. It's around 560 watt hours per mile to climb that mountain, probably at an average speed of 45 miles an hour. So that's not good. You don't want to do that all day long. However, the better route planner predicted we'd have 35% state of charge when we got to Cloudcroft, and we had about 50%. So I think it was like around 45%. But anyway, we visited some close friends there we hadn't seen in a while, and we stayed at the Summit Inn. And the manager there let me charge overnight, and so I plugged in the car before we went up to our room. And after I fell asleep, I woke up a couple hours later, and I realized I hadn't reset the car from at 120 volt charging. It defaults to 8 amps, and I need to reset it to 12 amps, or otherwise you're not gaining as much range. So I went down and did that. And I didn't have a kilowatt hour meter with me, so as near as I could figure, we took about 13 kilowatt hours in total. So next morning after breakfast, we went back down the mountain, and the same 15.9 miles, we gained 2.8 kilowatt hours. Now, if you subtract 2.8 kilowatt hours from 8.9, you end up with 6.1 kilowatt hours was the total net power it took to climb the mountain, and of course regaining the energy coming back down. And when you divide that out by 31.8 miles, you end up with 192 watt hours per mile average for going up and down the mountain. Now, at first, that's a little bit shocking, but you got to realize that just going down the mountain, you're below unity. You're gaining energy. You're not using energy to go back down the mountain. And that's even true in a gas car, except that the damn gas car is idling all the time you're going down, and you're using the brakes most of the time to dissipate the energy. You're not using it to generate energy to put back into the car. So that's a coup. I figured we at 192 watt hours per mile, you're averaging 157 miles per gallon. So to climb a 4,430 foot mountain and come back down at an average 157 miles per gallon, that's quite a coup. So then we arrived home before noon. Our total trip was 220.2 miles. And I had to add the 13 kilowatt hours back in to the total charge. And I charged about 40 kilowatt hours, plus the 13's 53 kilowatt hours. And then I had to add 5.56 kilowatt hours back in because I charged the car back to 95%, not 100. And the difference, as I checked before I left, between 95% and 100% is 5.56 kilowatt hours. That's what it took to charge between those 2 points. And then we had stopped in a place to charge, and we sat there for 30 minutes and didn't realize the charging session had stopped on us. And we had a nearly full battery anyway. But anyway, we only took 0.0456 kilowatt hours, which is ridiculously very little electricity, but I added that in just for grins. And we ended up total for the whole trip 58.6 kilowatt hours, which averages 266 watt hours per mile, and it averages out to 126.7 miles per gallon. And we had 98 miles left on the GOM of estimated range when we got home. So the whole trip worked out. We could have done it without charging at all at Cloudcroft. So that's my summary for this trip and climbing the Sacramento Mountains from Alamogordo up in Cloudcroft. Everyone have a nice day. See you on down the road. Aerostel signing out here. Bye-bye.